Some people don't trust money because they love it. They trust it because money does not go quiet when you need it or pull away without warning. It never changes its mood after a normal sentence. It does not ask you to explain what you meant or who you were trying to be. Over time, that lack of reaction starts to feel like safety. Money begins to feel safer than people, not because it cares, but because it never responds at all. Money pressure does not always feel like fear for everyone who grows up around it. For some people, it feels contained and predictable instead of sharp. Numbers do not carry tone when you check them. They do not remember yesterday or punish hesitation today. Money does not react when you pause or pull back. It does not grow distant when you lean on it. When money tightens, the change is visible and named. The pressure has a clear source and a clear limit. There is no hidden meaning behind it. People apply pressure differently. They can withdraw warmth without warning. They can change expectations without saying so. That kind of pressure forces constant monitoring. You watch tone and timing instead of facts. Over time, the body starts comparing which pressure costs less to carry. One kind stays the same no matter your emotional state. The other shifts based on moods you cannot see coming. Slowly, money stops feeling neutral. It becomes a reference point. It tells you where the edges are. It tells you what will not change its mind. That signal can feel stabilizing even when it restricts you. This is how pressure becomes reassurance without comfort. This pattern usually forms before money ever feels important on its own. It begins in homes where emotional reactions arrive without warning. Care can be present one moment and distant the next. Approval can depend on mood instead of behavior. A child learns that closeness is unstable, even when nothing changed. Silence becomes something to read carefully. Tone becomes something to track for safety. In that environment, feelings do not feel grounding. They feel risky and reversible. Structure feels safer than warmth. Rules feel safer than reassurance. Money enters this space as something oddly consistent. It is counted and checked the same way every time. It does not withdraw when tension fills the room. It does not change sides during conflict. When adults argue, money stays neutral in the background. When adults shut down, money does not follow them. Over time, the nervous system pairs money with steadiness. It pairs people with emotional shifts. This pairing does not come from lessons or lectures. It comes from repetition and exposure. The body notes what stays the same under stress. It also notes what becomes unpredictable. That contrast settles quietly and early. Later in life, money carries that early imprint. It feels familiar in a way people often do not. Over time, the body builds rules without asking for permission. It learns what requires vigilance and what does not. People require monitoring because their reactions can shift suddenly. Money does not. It never watches you back. It never tightens because of tone or timing. This difference matters more than comfort. The nervous system prefers what stays neutral under pressure. It prefers signals that do not escalate. When money creates stress, it stays contained in one lane. There is no second layer to interpret. You are not guessing what it means. With people, there is always another layer. Silence might mean distance or punishment. Closeness might mean a future cost. The body stays alert around that uncertainty. Money does not create that alertness. It creates limits without emotion. Over time, the system marks money as low threat. It marks people as variable risk. This is not a choice made in thought. It is a pattern locked into response. The body moves toward what asks the least from it. Predictability starts to feel like safety. Even when it comes with pressure, it feels manageable. That is how neutrality becomes relief. That is how money earns trust without warmth. As this pattern deepens, it begins to shape identity quietly. Trusting people starts to feel like a risk instead of a value. Depending on money feels safer even when it creates limits. Over time, this creates a split inside the self. One part wants connection and ease. Another part stays loyal to what never reacts. Choosing people can feel like choosing chaos. Choosing money can feel like choosing control. This loyalty is not conscious or proud, it feels practical and justified. The person learns to show up reliably where reaction is minimal. They become consistent around systems and guarded around emotions. Trusting money becomes a way to avoid missteps. Trusting people feels like inviting correction. This creates an internal rule about worth. Stability becomes proof of responsibility. Emotional need starts to feel like a liability. The identity narrows around what does not ask too much. Over time, this loyalty feels like maturity. It feels like being grounded and realistic. But underneath, it is still a protection. It's loyalty to what never changed on you. That loyalty becomes hard to question because it once worked. Several mechanisms lock this pattern in place without being noticed. Emotional unpredictability trains constant self-correction. You start editing yourself before speaking. You measure timing and tone and need. Money does not require that adjustment. It reacts the same no matter how you arrive. Another mechanism is emotional memory. People store past moments and bring them forward later. Money does not recall who you were yesterday. It does not reinterpret the past. Then there is withdrawal without explanation. Humans use silence as feedback. Money never does. These differences reduce cognitive load. The mind rests where it does not need to scan for shifts. Over time, effort itself becomes a cost to avoid. Trust moves toward what demands the least interpretation. This is not about liking money, it's about conserving energy. Emotional labor feels risky when outcomes keep changing. Numbers feel final even when they're harsh. That finality creates a strange sense of fairness. You may lose, but you are not misread. You may be constrained, but you are not corrected. These mechanisms reward distance from people without announcing it. They make neutrality feel respectful. They make reaction feel dangerous. This is how trust migrates quietly. It moves toward what cannot respond back. As this pattern deepens, the range of safety keeps shrinking without being noticed. Numbers calm you faster than reassurance ever does. Clear limits feel easier than open emotional space. Conversations begin to feel heavier than decisions with fixed outcomes. Emotional exchanges start to feel inefficient and risky. You gravitate towards systems where reactions are minimal. Places with rules feel lighter than places with feelings. Over time, this reshapes where energy goes. You give attention to what stays stable. You pull back from what needs interpretation. This does not register as fear. It feels like efficiency and self-control. It feels like choosing what works. But the narrowing continues quietly. More interactions feel emotionally expensive. More people feel unpredictable. The body responds by leaning harder into what stays the same. Trust concentrates around what cannot surprise you. That concentration brings short-term calm. It also reduces tolerance for emotional movement. Unclear signals start to feel unsafe. Waiting feels costly. Ambiguity feels threatening. Life divides into manageable and draining. Money sits firmly on the manageable side. At this stage, it is no longer neutral. It is carrying the job of protection and containment. Eventually, this protection creates a quiet tension that never gets named. Money feels safe because it never reacts. People feel dangerous because they always might. The system works until it doesn't. One day, the absence of reaction stops feeling neutral. It starts feeling empty and narrow. Trust was placed where nothing can meet you back. The safety came from silence, not from care. Money did not disappear emotionally, but something else did. What remains is a life built around what cannot respond. The question is not why money feels safer. The question is what happens when safety requires no one at all.